If you do this on the bench press, you're a clown. That's basically the premise of this video. And what I realized is that a lot of people don't actually understand what is arching. And the problem that I have with this video is that in order to not arch, the person doesn't do any proper setup on the bench press, and that's a wrong way to do the bench press. Imagine you want to set up a nice and beautiful house, but you put zero efforts in the base. It will just fall apart. In the same fashion as you set up when you want to squat heavy or you brace before a deadlift, you have to create a position on the bench press. If you don't set up properly, you won't be able to maximize your strength on the movement, and at the same time, not having a good and repeatable technique will highly increase the risk of injuries. I've been doing powerlifting style bench press for years. I've been competing internationally, especially at world level competitions for years, and I never injured my shoulders when bench pressing, and I mostly attribute that to proper positioning, meaning proper arch in the bench press. And also, this position actually allows me to bench press 2.7 times my body weight in competition. You'll understand everything about arching in this video, but the reality is that every strong bench presser has a sort of arch in the bench press. Here you have two examples of the best bench pressers in the world. In the tested side, we have Jesus Olivares bench pressing 600 pounds or 272.5 kilos. And as you can see, he uses a position, he uses an arch. And also on the untested side, we have Julius Maddox bench pressing 796 pounds or 361 kilos, also having a sort of arch at the beginning of his bench press. Obviously, as you can see, they don't have this crazy high arch that you may have seen in some YouTube videos or competition edits, but what I mean by that is an arch is an arch, whether it's an extreme arch or whether it's a slight arch, the position is exactly the same. So saying, hey, you shouldn't arch in the bench press because you're a clown, for me is very wrong, because like I told you, every strong powerlifter, every strong bench presser uses the arch in order to maximize strength, but also reduce the risk of injury. So now in this video, we're going to see exactly what the arch is all about, and also how you can perfect your own arch in order to maximize your bench results. Contrary to popular belief, the powerlifting arch has nothing to do with the low back. The goal is not to arch your low back, the goal is to open up the chest. So basically, you want to extend the thoracic spine, so which is the upper back, and the lower back will follow a bit, but the goal is not to arch the low back. You want to open the chest. And the best advice we usually give is think big chest when you go to bench press. And you want to do that for two main reasons. Number one, having an open chest will actually stretch more of your pec muscles. And if you've seen some videos of some of the most respected scientists or trainers in the fitness industry on YouTube, you'll see that most of the time they always say keep your chest high, keep a big chest when they're doing their pressing motion. Like I said, it allows for more pectoral activation, more muscle activation. And if you're activating more your pecs, you're using them more in the movement, so you actually have more strength, but also you're developing them more efficiently. And that's why if you look closely, most of the best powerlifters on the planet, when they have a good bench press, they also have a big chest. In my example, I can bench press 180 kilos or roughly 400 pounds. And as you can see, for a 66 kilo lifter, I have a pretty good chest. But also if you look at other examples, you'll have very good athletes with good bench press strength, good arch, but also a big chest. And that's the main reason why, because again, when you're arching, you're actually developing more of your pec with the bench press. Number two, when you arch, you actually have a much stable and much better position with your shoulders. I said it in the intro of this video, but I'm a competitive powerlifter, and as such, I have a lot of bench press to do every week. In order to give you a rough estimate, I do between 20 and 25 heavy sets of bench press every week. And I've been doing that for almost 8 years now. Despite the crazy volume, despite the crazy intensity, I never suffered any shoulder injury. I would attribute most of that to the position I get into when I bench press meaning the arch. Like you can see in my videos, I personally don't have a crazy high arch in the bench press. The point is not to say you should have a crazy high arch, it's to say you have different degrees of arch, and even without a crazy arch, you can get a lot of benefits. Like I said, more strength, less injuries, and that's exactly what we're looking for when we want to develop strength and muscle with the bench press. So now we've just talked about why actually everybody has a degree, a sort of arch. Let's talk about how you can yourself get into this position without having the exaggerated arch, but still having most of the benefits that we just seen. In order to have an arch, it's all about setting your shoulders. In order to set the arch, we'll actually start by having our hands in front of us. From this position, we want to do the opposite. And the reason why is that because you do the opposite, you create a lot of space to then get into the position we're actually looking for. Now you've rolled your shoulders forward, you have a lot of room in order to set them back. From now, we'll start the arch. In order to do so, you want to retract, so have your shoulders back. What I do is I personally imagine as if there's someone having their hand between my scapulas and actually pushing in the other direction. So if you have the two movements at the same time, you end up with this chest high position. You want it to be a slight shoulders back. The reason as to why you do not want to exaggerate this motion is if you completely pinch your shoulder blades back, you'll end up having some sort of elevation, so meaning your shoulders will now be lifted up, and from this position you won't be able to bench press heavy, and also it's a much more riskier position for your shoulders. So if you end up oftentimes when bench pressing in some sort of guillotine movement, it's probably because you're trying to have your shoulders back way too much, and having them slightly back but then down is the key to correct that. So the next step, I think you understood, in order to have a good arch, now you have your shoulders slightly back, you want to have them down. So you want to lower your shoulders. And the cue that I like to give is imagine you want your shoulders to go into your pockets. So basically you're just having your shoulders back and now you're slightly lowering them. And as you can see, those two motions, they just end up being this chest high, chest open position. So again, we don't care about the low back when arching, we do care about this upper body positioning. Now you're there, the arch is set, and you're good to go in order to bench press a lot of weights. So, in order to conclude this video, I really want to emphasize this aspect. Arching does not make you a clown. If for you arching makes you a clown, it means that every technique, every athlete use in their given sport makes them a clown. Because again, arching is one of the biggest technique powerlifters use in order to produce the most amount of force. That's a good position for all of those reasons. So, arching like crazy, again, I'm not talking about this extreme. In the IPF, now you cannot arch like crazy anymore because we have the elbow depth rule, so we're seeing less and less of those crazy high arches. If you're not interested in those arches, then just don't watch them. But saying you shouldn't arch in the bench press is for me a big mistake and is something you should definitely avoid. You should have a sort of arch in the bench press, and like I said, every serious strong powerlifter in the world has a degree of arch when they do their bench press. So that was it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. If that's the case, just let me know in the comments. And also, if you want to support, follow this channel. That's one of the best ways to do so. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.